Hi, this is Vinyl Riffs with Sean Gaillard. This is the space where we drop the needle on an album that has been spinning in my heart. This is also the space where we explore the stories, the grooves, and the music that connects us. This is a homemade podcast, and I am so grateful that you are here, and I am ready to dive in with you. Actually, I'm ready to go on the run with you with the classic 1973 album Band on the Run by Wings. And I have a copy of this album here, very iconic album cover featuring Paul McCartney, his wife Linda, and the other member of Wings, Denny Lane, formerly of the Moody Blues. Let's cue that great Moody Blues classic that Denny Lane sang on Go Now. And then there's also on this album cover a few other interesting faces and folks of note. You have the great actor Christopher Lee, and then you also have the other great actor James Coburn and great British television interviewer Michael Parkinson. Great, great album, and a significant album that has really been on my turntable a lot lately in the wake of two things from Paul McCartney commemorating Wings. First, the book entitled Wings, the story of a band on the run, which is a oral history of Paul McCartney's solo years, or at least the first 10 years in his solo career and his collaboration with the band Wings. And then there is a companion film documentary called Man on the Run, which explores that space as well. Both highly recommend, and both just fun to enjoy and to experience, especially if you are a geek in music, or especially if you are an unabashed fan like I am of the Beatles and Paul McCartney. And really, the documentary and the book put into beautiful context, kind of some human lessons and some human truths. And typically when we think about the Beatle breakup, there's all kinds of hype and history and whose side are you on, and you can kind of get bogged down in the legal aspect of that breakup, and the film and the book explore the personal pain and setback of this breakup for Paul McCartney, and it attempts to answer the question, or rather to explore the question: what does one do after a failure? What does one do after a golden era ends? How does one carry on? How does one cope with failure? And all of the Beatles, probably felt some level of pain and hurt and relief in that their brotherhood, their unit, this place of comfort and creativity and love is over. And Paul McCartney, in the film Man on the Run and in the book Wings, Story of a Band on the Run, we go on a little bit of a journey with him and how he comes to terms with this, how he is at a crossroads in his life, recently married, about to become a father, and then dealing with the fact that he is suing the Beatles to protect them from a manager that he felt was ripping them off, and later proven that he was ripping off the other three Beatles. But just a lot of pain and turmoil. He deals with depression. He deals with anxiety, and he deals with this kind of notion, this existential notion of why me? Where does one go? Where does one go after the Beatles? How do you follow something like Abbey Road, the final Beatles recorded studio album? How do you follow the mountaintop? How do you follow the moon landing? How do you follow going, into the stratosphere? What does one do when your brothers and your collaborators are not there with you? And what Paul decides to do is to get back, so to speak, pun intended, on that great Beatles song, to get back to his home, his life, to celebrate this new life that he is seeking, but to really go back to the origins rather than going, into another layer into the atmosphere. I want to get back to earth. I want to start a new band. I want to be part of a band again. And Paul does that with Wings. And this album, Band on the Run, which is it's not the first Wings album. It's really the third Wings album. And he's riding the high in 1973 of establishing himself and dealing with some chart success and some critical success as well, and then also fighting the legal battle with the breakup of the band, and then also finding his voice, finding his groove, with Wings. They started out, and it talks about it in the book and the film, as doing a university tour. That was their first tour, and they just drove around England and went from town to town, and popped into different universities and colleges asking to play. And it takes time to find your groove and to find that trust with the band, and Wings was able to do that with some success, and they had a massive hit with the recording of Live and Let Die, the title track of the James Bond film. And so Paul's riding a bit of a high here, and he decides to take the band to Lagos, Nigeria, and to record and to kind of get in with the local gentry, and to be in an exotic place, and to explore that with his family, and to record there. And literally the night before the band is about to set flight for Nigeria, two of the band members quit. They don't want to go. So, what does Paul do? He we're going to go anyway. Let's show them what we have. Let's prove them wrong, which is a typical mindset in Paul McCartney's creative output. Think back to Sgt. Pepper when the Beatles were recording that album, and they had retreated to the studio and refrained from touring, and the press was stirring up all of these rumors and doubts and questions that the Beatles were washed up, and that they weren't going to achieve any more success. And Paul McCartney said that they used to read those news articles and be greatly amused by them. And he would say, "You just wait. We can't wait to show you what we've got coming, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band." And it's that same mindset. Okay, these two guys don't want to play with us. Well, we'll show them. We'll show them what we can do. And so I believe that Band on the Run is a study in how to deal with failure, how to fail forward. And this album is beset with all kinds of troubles and issues. Paul and his wife Linda are mugged at knife point in Nigeria, and thankfully they survived that ordeal, but the demos and lyrical notebooks were stolen. But again, instead of retreating or wallowing in failure, okay, we've played these songs enough. I think I've got my muscle memory. I think I remember some of the lyrics and some of the what the middle eight was for that song, which was a typical practice in the Beatles recording output. They didn't necessarily have an iPhone or a tape recorder on hand. They would play and play and play and then try to remember. And if they and the mindset was if it was memorable, then and if it was worth remembering, and you're able to remember it, then it was good. Then that was the sign to keep going. So um, the album is just filled with great pop hits. It's filled with great radio friendly hits as well, and it definitely became a hallmark in Wings's concert performances and Paul McCartney's solo performances. "Band on the Run," the title track, almost has like a sweet like a feel, and that was a number one hit. Then "Jet," was also a huge hit as well. And then you've just got like this just kind of again almost Abbey Road esque feel to the album. Like when you drop the needle on this record, you feel like you're listening to a rock epic, very similar to the feel of Abbey Road. And I think that has everything to do with the engineering work of the great Jeff Emmerich, who engineered a lot of the latter day Beatles masterpieces: Revolver, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Magical Mystery Tour, and of course Abbey Road as well. You've got three wings on the back cover, three wings in the band, and Paul and Linda and Denny Lane make it work. It does sound like a full band effort, even though you've got Paul overdubbing percussion and drums. Linda, not necessarily a virtuoso keyboardist, but still a great feel and a quick study and a quick learner, and her harmonies underrated with Paul. She does get a lot of grief for being in the band, but it just fits. It just works. And of course, Denny Lane's harmonies and rhythm guitar work all make the sum of the parts fit together in an album that does sound like a full band unit. And the themes of escape, the themes of release, the themes of freedom, the themes of just joy register on an epic level. And it's just such a satisfying listen. And when you think about the backdrop of the album and the turmoil that beset and plagued the album, it just makes the listening experience even more satisfying, even more inspirational. So I highly recommend check out Band on the Run. It is clearly available on vinyl. Go to your local friendly neighborhood record store and pick up a copy. Order it. It's streaming, and it's just a great album to listen to from beginning to end. Band on the Run, Jet, Bluebird, Mrs. Vanderbilt. Oh my gosh, what a great track! Let Me Roll It. Oh man, what a song that echoes Lennon's work. It almost sounds like it could fit on a Beatles reunion album. And it's just got great gritty guitar work from Paul. Paul's known for his melodic bass playing, but he's also an underrated lead guitarist, and you hear that on Let Me Roll It. Mamma Monia, just a sublime song and great percussion work by Paul, and you feel a little bit of that African sensibility on the backbeat of that song, and wonderful synthesizer work there from Paul and Linda McCartney. Picasso's Last Words, Drink to Me. That's a great song as well. There's a kind of a legendary story about that. Paul and Linda McCartney were having dinner with the actor Dustin Hoffman and his wife, and they got into a conversation about creativity and songwriting and what goes into that, and acting and what goes into that. And Dustin Hoffman challenged Paul McCartney to write a song about something in a recent issue of Time magazine. So they, kind of flipped through the magazine and landed on the death of the artist Pablo Picasso, and Paul McCartney, pretty much wrote that song on the spot. And the cool thing about that song, again, there's this kind of Abbey Road sweet rock opera kind of feel to some of the tracks, like Band on the Run. Picasso's Last Words has that same kind of feel as well. And there in the middle of the song, when it shifts keys and shifts to almost another section, you hear an echo of the song Jet. So again, I love stuff like that when you have recurring themes and motifs in music. And then of course the album closes on a high note with 1985, just a really rocking song, amazing to hear in concert. And again, you have that kind of rock opera sweet feel of that song, and it ends on a high note with a refrain, a reprise, if you will, of Band on the Run. So just a great album from beginning to end, and it's a great album to get lost in the world of. And it is probably McCartney's best album in my opinion. I know that's debatable. Some of you are going, wait a minute, Sean, I love Tug of War. What about Wings at the Speed of Sound? What about McCartney, the eponymous solo album? What about McCartney 2? What about McCartney 3? Again, that's the beauty of music and the things that connect us. We all have a connection to that, and we're passionate about that connection. And I am very passionate about this album, and grateful for Paul McCartney, and grateful for Wings having the creative courage and the stamina and the grit to stay true to the vision, to overcome failure, to fail forward, and create a masterpiece. A lesson for us all, a lesson for us all to live by. And I am grateful for Band on the Run. I'm really curious about your thoughts on Paul McCartney's solo work. I'm really curious how you feel about the album. So feel free to drop a comment online, and feel free to tag me to that, and use the hashtag Vinyl Riffs. Would really love to be in a conversation and see how the album connects and resonates with you. So that's it for this episode of Vinyl Riffs. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to keep listening, to keep grooving, to keep believing. Believe in your groove. Your groove matters, and your groove helps make the world a better place. I will catch you on the flip side. Hope to run into you at the record store. Thanks again.